Hello, wonderful. It is Sarah, and I'm here with Melinda Van Fleet. And she is a success coach, speaker, writer, and a business consultant who helps individuals get unstuck, develop confidence, and lead their best lives, learn to lead themselves to have their best lives. Hey, Melinda, how are you?
Hi, I'm great, Sarah. How are you?
I am happy to talk to you. Happy to be here. I told Melinda I said there's snow in my area today, so I'm gazing at the snow as I gaze at Melinda. I go back and forth. So Melinda,
we had a cold snap too. So.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It seems like winter's come quickly this year. It wants to keep us all quarantined, maybe is what's happening. Well, Melinda, tell us a little bit about you, and then I want to dive into getting on with our lives, even if something bad has happened, right?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me on your show and podcast. This is awesome. My husband, Ryan, and I, we both lost our jobs at the same time in 2009. So it's actually been 11 years. And 11 years ago, we moved down to the Florida Keys with nothing. So we had never been here. We didn't know anybody. We had hardly any money and we didn't have any jobs. And we just took a chance on life and started over from scratch. My husband had dreams of being a charter boat captain. And now he runs a very successful fishing charter business in the Upper Keys called Karma Sportfishing.
Okay, I do need to point out right here with Melinda, I told her I had snow and she said she had a cold front. And then she just busted Florida on me.
I know, I always feel bad. It's like 70 and it was cold. So
my husband and I have a place in Florida too, but it's upper Florida. So the water's gorgeous in that Gulf, but it's not quite as warm as the Keys. So
oh, and I know we're segueing, but that's what's great about podcasts. In the Panhandle?
Yes, yeah. The Emerald Coast
there.
area.
So
it is so beautiful there. Yeah. Anyway,
really
fishing trip, rebuilding. Don't want to get too off. Yes.
So we had big dreams. And like I said, my husband dreamt of being a charter boat captain. We would fish everywhere in Minneapolis. That's where we lived and where we met. And I had dreams of becoming paid per performance and getting out of toxic corporate world and being a sales rep and having more freedom. And so we manifested and here we are in the Keys. So 11 years later, and it took some time and a lot of pivoting and changing and tweaking. But after about 2 to 3 years, we finally got some momentum and things started working out in our favor and working out quite beautifully. And here we are today. So
awesome.
And a couple years ago, then I decided to share our knowledge because I always said that someday when we get our quote unquote shit together, we would help others. So being that we truly did rebuild and start from scratch with a very positive mindset, I'm like, you know what? People need to realize that they can do the same thing. That they don't need to wallow in the mud. Everyone has the same capabilities. We all have it inside ourselves to get unstuck, build confidence, and move forward to live our best lives. So that's the path we're on now.
Well, and I want to point out something. So you put in the work and you put in the weight, right? Like you talked about that 2 or 3 year period where it was like, I don't know if things are going to work out. And you talked about manifesting, you talked about building, but you didn't even just like sit and like hope it was going to happen. You developed strategies and plans. So putting in that work and putting in the weight is just such a key piece to rebuilding your life. And so I think people want to do one or the other. They kind of want to wait and hope it gets better on its own sometimes, or they want to, not put in the work, but then why isn't it happening like this very second, which I am more inclined to. I am a very, very impatient human when it comes to like rebuilding my own life. But that's awesome. So let's discuss compartmentalization and how to compartmentalize when something bad has happened or something bad is happening. How do you kind of get on with life, recognizing and honor that to some extent, but also kind of having to get on with things, not wallowing in it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Years ago, when I was a corporate buyer, so in the corporate world, I had things happen to me all the time, right? We all do. We all have relationship challenges, whether it's at work or at home. We have things that happen. It can be as simple as getting an email that just triggers you and just kind of sets you off for the day. So I started just really learning to take a moment, take some breaths, and recognize what's going on instead of reacting. Because often we react so quickly and then we regret it. And then you kind of dig yourself this hole in this bigger brain loop that just keeps going on. And that doesn't serve you at all either. So what I started realizing that I was saying to myself was in regards to just developing a tool that I call a bucket tool. And the compartmentalization that you mentioned to me is buckets. And now I do it all the time. I'm constantly talking about buckets. I talk about buckets on my podcast. I talk about buckets when my husband and I are trying to move through something, because having two small businesses, we're always dealing with something, as you can imagine. And how this works, it's very simple, but you just have to remember to do it and make it a practice and a habit. But bucket number one is that it's okay. So you've taken some deep breaths, you've thought about it, maybe you walked away from your computer with my email example, and you're like, you know what? It's really not a big deal. Like, I'm going to be fine. This email isn't that bad. I'm just going to move through it, respond, and roll on with my day. Bucket number two is where you might need to have some communication. You might need to take some type of action to remedy the situation, to get yourself in a better place. It could be communication with the person that sent the email. I often had situations where I was triggered by a sales manager. So finding a fellow sales rep that you trust, or someone else that you trust, that you can kind of run the scenario through, just to understand, is it me, is it them, just try to get some type of balance and then figure out how to move forward. That would be bucket number two. So that is, again, just having some type of communication. You need to take some action and find some way to move forward. Bucket number three, which does happen, is you need to walk away. Like, you really need to either not respond, as far as like this email example, or, sometimes with somebody, cut ties.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a relationship, if it's something going on with that, you might need to cut ties. If it's a work situation that, just isn't getting better, you might need to cut ties there. It's okay to realize that you can move yourself forward and become unstuck. And I think so many people are afraid to take that action. They're thinking it's them. They think it might get better, and really do the work and the deep dive to recognize that, it might not get better, and you might not be able to change that other person. They may never change. And that's like a whole other topic, but
a very familiar topic on toxic person proof. I assure you. They're probably like, oh yeah.
But yeah, just having the strength and the confidence to be like, you know what, I need to walk away from this situation. Mm-hmm. So that is bucket number three, probably the most severe, and again, one that people struggle with a lot, but it is necessary. And the more and more you do it, and the more and more you practice it, and you realize that your life's not going to end when you take bucket number three action. It's actually probably going to get better. Often, like, that door closing brings a window of more opportunities, whether it's clients or relationships or job. But getting through that is sometimes really tough for people. So,
well, people talk about their comfort zones, and I'm always like giggle when I hear that. I think it's like the stupidest thing I've ever heard, honestly, because when they start describing it, it's like, that's not comfortable at all. Like, if you have a toxic boss, or a toxic situation, or a toxic friend, or I call it a toxic person encounter in my book. And it's like, okay, you're having a toxic person encounter. That's not comfortable. That's not a comfort zone. So when we kind of like lie to ourselves a little bit to avoid taking action and say, oh, I just need to stay in my comfort zone, or this is my comfort zone, or starting to make excuses. And there are some situations that are extremely difficult to get out of. And I want to acknowledge that, take a breath and acknowledge that. I'm not shaming anyone for those decisions. Okay. I'm only pointing out that when we start to tell ourselves that our comfort zones aren't really comfortable, it makes it easier to move forward.
Yes. Yes. And isn't it true that when you have that uncomfortable thing, it just keeps repeating in your head, like this head loop just keeps going on. And don't you want to stop that?
Yeah. So I would love to talk about that head loop, right? And what do you do when you're what do you do when you're in that head loop? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And another, like this kind of segues, but is along the same lines, giving someone 3 chances.
Woo, 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 3 strikes you're out roll.
3 strikes you're out. I mean, how simple is that?
Yes,
in terms of just remembering 3 strikes you're out. So it kind of goes in the same bucket in the same way that, if you are in that place where you're uncomfortable and it keeps happening and it's happened again, and then it's happened again, sit down and take a moment. Think about you. This is like a reoccurring behavior. This is a reoccurring situation. It's been 3 times. Like, you do have to come to a point where you realize that you have to take action and move through the uncomfortable situation, because otherwise you're just going over it and over it in your head.
And it gets rid of that loophole that we kind of like lie to ourselves again. And it's like, okay, everyone has a bad day. Well, this person has a bad pattern.
Yes.
And when you start to look at the 3 strikes you're out, there's that real pattern of behavior. So it's not just a person, it's a pattern.
Yep. Yep. And also too, finding, again, this kind of goes back to bucket number 2, but finding someone that you can trust that might know that person as well. And my husband and I, we were just part of a book series called Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner. And our chapter is on confidence. And it's something actually we talk about in our chapter, that, finding someone to talk to, so it's not you, is so important. Granted, it's not always the easiest. I get that. And finding someone you trust, because, unfortunately, sometimes you think you trust someone and that doesn't work out so well. But often you can find somebody that you can just kind of bounce something off of in a positive energy way. And if you find that that pattern is also something that other person experienced as well, again, it's not you. And you have to figure out how to get out of that and move forward.
My whole spiel obviously is toxic person proof. And in my own life, one of the ways I strive, I am in the practice of, it's like doctors are practicing medicine, meditators practice meditation, like practicing being toxic person proof. Because anytime I would say, or we would lie to ourselves and say, I've got this, I've covered it, I don't have to take advice from anybody else anymore, I don't have to watch out for, then you become susceptible again, right? Blah, 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 blah. Susceptible again to missing something. And when you have that person that you trust, that you just gauge, and in my own life, if there is a toxic person encounter, I have people and I'll say, I think I know the answer, but I'm very emotionally connected to the situation. Can I have some feedback from someone who isn't emotionally connected to the situation?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. That's a good idea, because then they have a neutral point of view.
Yes.
And as long as, well, first of all, let me say kudos to you for having the courage and the confidence to ask for that, because a lot of people don't have the courage and the confidence to ask for direct feedback about their own thoughts or behaviors. Right. So that's a big thing that probably some people have to work through, because you have to be open to hearing that if it's bad,
And the way I think about it is creating safety nets for myself, right? Like my life did burn down and got rebuilt. It wasn't, I don't know when it was, not 2009, but like I did burn down my life and rebuild it. And creating that safety net for myself, because I tried that isolated thing before. Oh, I can handle it. Oh, I can this. And it was not successful. And it's not because I'm stupid. It's not because I'm not a good communicator. It's not all those other stories we tell ourselves. It's because I want to be toxic person proof. I want to have the best life. And as a coach, I recognize that there's things other people can see that I can't. And by golly, I will not fall into another hole if at all possible. And when we don't take that courageous action to get feedback, we are susceptible to falling in holes and then lying to ourselves about being in a hole.
Yes. You just read my mind. The lying to yourself that everything's going to be okay, or it's not your fault, or it's all them. So yeah, there is a balance there.
Yes.
And in finding that balance and having somebody to talk to is beautiful. It's just beautiful.
So what are some other ways to stop that ruminating process, or, figure out if it's a bad bucket, right? If it's a good bucket, yay. If it's a bad bucket, how do you not let it take over?
Yeah, I really believe in taking a pause. I really believe in recognizing and breathing. And, everyone talks about breathing, but you really have to take, like they say, 6 seconds and holding in that oxygen and doing that repeatedly, like 3 times or more to stop the brain pattern. And I'm an overthinker and sounds similar to you. I'm an over action taker, kind of have that impatient Aries nature because I'm an Aries.
You're an Aries? What's your birthday?
April 7th.
Mine's April 1st.
Oh, there we go. Now, when you say impatient, I'm like, I wonder if she's an Aries.
Yes. April 1st. No fun.
So it's like I fight against it, right? I try to not do that. So those are just things that I have found to really help is to walk away, is to ask for guidance, asking for help, taking some time. And then you do have to think through all the different scenarios without driving yourself crazy. What if I handle it this way? How's this going to be? Could I have done this better? And really trying to see yourself as the other person, I think is really important too. And, just understanding all of the different aspects. What could I have done better? What could, what's the other person? Are they going to change? Maybe not. And just trying to figure that out and create some space for yourself. Give yourself some space. Everyone is so hard on themselves lately, especially, be okay with giving yourself some space and some time to figure things out. Often we get a phone call with our charter business from a client or something. And, I've had to say to my husband, like, you don't need to get back to them right away. If it's something that's a little bit tricky to maneuver through, like, let it simmer for a second, like, think about it and then get back. The sky's not going to fall. Like, we're all going to be all right. So,
and a strategy that I've done with that, obviously, in communicating with toxic people, right? That's a huge piece of what I coach people on.
Yeah.
And maybe you write it, you just don't send it. So if you need to like emotionally process and like, you can write whatever you want to say, but then give it some time, take that breath, take that pause, and then delete the words, right? And see how few words you can send. And let that be your goal. I talked to you about Eli Wild, one of my coaches now, and fabulous speaker, speaks on Tony Robbins stages. And he said, Sarah, you need to work on letting your words land. You have so many words. You need to work on letting them land. And, even in my writing now, it's like, okay, spill out and then delete. What do I really need to say?
Yeah. And I've done that many times too. And that's so true and great advice because write the email, make sure you didn't put their name in the address.
Yes.
Because often we go to create an email when that's the first thing we do, right? So
yes.
Do that.
Maybe I write it in a Word document.
I was just going to say, I've learned to write in Word and then revisit it over the next couple days to take the energy out.
Yes.
Take any words that just have any type of energy. That's the best way I can say it. Any type of triggery energy and go through that. And I had a very challenging sales manager and I had to stand up for myself a lot. And I always I took about 2 to 3 days to get to get back to him, because I
Mhm.
made sure that I would comb through and take the energy out. I would have my husband read it. I would make sure she's very factual.
Mhm.
This is why,
Yes.
I
Facts,
decided
not
to,
feelings.
yep,
Facts, not
exactly.
feelings. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes.
Just stick
And
to the facts.
I was one of my other coaches. It's weird. I'm talking about all my coaches right now. And she's an executive leadership coach in Dallas, Texas, Marsha L. Clark. And she said, if that happens and you wait 2 or 3 days, don't reply back with, I'm sorry for it took so long to get back to you.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's so good.
We need to say, thank you for your patience. I wanted to make sure I was, clear, or want to make sure I got you the right information, and don't apologize for it.
Mhm.
Don't
Yeah.
apologize for it. You did what you needed, and you did the best you could do to defuse a situation rather than throw gasoline on it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Diffuse. That is a great word. That is a great word.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, when people react and, that is what you're doing, is you're just throwing gasoline on it. And we've all done it. So it's like, learn from your mistakes.
Absolutely. Well, and that process of writing it out first that we were talking about, it allows me to let my mind rest so that I'm not going, I need to say this. I'm going to say this. I'm going to whatever. Like, okay, like I said all those things. And then I have the choice, which I'm going to choose better, lead myself better and not send it. But I have the choice. Like the words are there. They're not going away. So my brain can start to compartmentalize a bit, right? and move on with some things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Even just like when you keep a notepad next to your bed, it's the same. When people are like, oh, I can't fall asleep at night. And you ask them, well, is it because you're overthinking and you just need to have a notepad by their bed? And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. So yeah, it is so helpful to just be able to write things down. So
and not as many plates spinning in our head, right? If your brain thinks to feel safe, it has to hold on to that. Your brain will try to keep you safe by holding on to it and protecting you from danger. If you can teach your brain, okay, I've already got you. I've already taken care of you. It's already in my notes. It's already in my emails. Then your brain can think of something else. And that's when creativity can hit. That's when problem solving rather than ruminating, right?
Yes. Yep. And that's what I'm actually personally working on, is less plates in my head. So yeah, you're on it, girl.
Yeah. Gretchen Rubin of the Happiness Project, she says, have a power hour. And so all those things that are kind of ruminating, you think, oh, well, I'm going to take care of that in my power hour, those little to-do lists or those things that we put off. And especially as a small business owner, because you wear a lot of hats. Right? So it's, do you work on writing a book or doing a podcast or fixing your website today?
You just nailed my morning. Are you here with me right now? I'm like working on another trademark for my husband's business, and that got all derailed. So yeah, you are completely right. As a small business owner, we end up doing all these other things that I never ever thought I would have to do. So,
but it's so fun though too. I just obviously trademarked Toxic Person Proof this year, with
cool.
the launch of the podcast and all that kind of stuff. And it feels, I remember like it coming in the mail and I was like, yeah, it's like I arrived, which is kind of
they
funny.
give you a certificate, like an award, like that you would put on like a doctor in a doctor's office or something. Yeah,
and it feels like an award, doesn't it? Like because all the work that you put into, creating that brand, creating that situation. And it feels like, oh, it's mine. Nobody can take it away from me now. It does feel powerful.
Yeah, totally cool. Well, congrats. That's
awesome. Thank you. So tell people where they can find more about Melinda.
Yes. So I have 2 podcasts. One is called Good Karma Success Coach, and one is called Crush It in Sales. So a little different. Good Karma Success Coach is more personal development and spiritual. Crush It in Sales focuses on the intersection of sales, leadership, and personal development. My website is goodkarmasuccesscoach.com, and you can easily find my blog on there, the podcasts, some free courses. And if you sign up for my newsletter, which is called Monday Mojo, you get a free Take Action and Believe in Yourself guide that'll just help you feel better. So
Take
that's how you can find me.
action.
Take action.
Action. Yeah, I'm gonna point it out again. We get that. We lie to ourselves and think about that comfort zone, and my now is safe and my tomorrow won't be, and it's just hardly ever true.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great quote from Nike. I'm sure you've heard it. It's out there. It's yesterday you said tomorrow.
Oh,
Think
yeah.
about it and think about how many people are like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Amazing.
it is not a recipe for success.
No. Mm-mm.
No, it is not a recipe for success. Well, awesome. Melinda, thank you for joining us on our journey to
Yes.
become toxic person proof.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it.